Hey everyone. So before we dive into everything today, we just need to do a really quick note. Everything we're discussing in this deep dive is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. We're sharing personal experiences, but we are definitely not certified financial advisors or accountants or attorneys.
Yeah, and we have to add that investing, or really making any financial decisions, always involves risk, including the very real possibility of losing money. So please, do your own research and consult a qualified professional for your specific situation.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, now W, let's talk about why so many people feel broke on a good salary.
Yes. The big question.
Right, and to kick this off, I want to just throw my own ego completely out the window, because I feel like the personal finance space is just like infested with gurus who lecture from this pedestal of perfection.
Oh, totally. The I've never bought a latte in my life crowd.
Exactly, and that's just not reality. So let me paint a picture of my actual reality a few years ago. I vividly remember this specific Tuesday. It was the 27th of the month.
Ugh, the danger zone.
The absolute danger zone. I was sitting in my car in a parking lot, and I opened my banking app, just, fully expecting to see a nice little cushion to get me through to payday. And the screen loads, and my checking account balance was $11.
Oh, man.
Just $11. And, I mean, here is the absolute kicker with this story. I was making a solid $58,000 a year at that point.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause there. $58,000. Depending on where you live, that is a perfectly respectable middle-class income.
Yeah.
You weren't, like, working a minimum wage gig part-time. You were a salaried professional.
Exactly. I was professional.
Right.
And I wasn't out buying luxury cars or, taking these lavish Instagram vacations to the Amalfi Coast.
Right.
I was literally just buying groceries, paying my rent, paying my phone bill. I was living what felt like a completely mundane average life. And yet there I was on the 27th, staring at a single-digit, double-digit at $11, but terrified that like a random $10 Spotify auto draft was going to hit.
Because then you get hit with the $35 overdraft fee.
Exactly, the poverty tax. I felt like an absolute failure. But looking back now, I realize it wasn't because I was recklessly irresponsible. It was fundamentally because nobody, not once in my entire life, had ever taught me a functional system for managing money.
Yeah. And if you are listening to this right now, like maybe you're driving or making breakfast, and you have felt that exact same shame, that secret panic of the low bank balance while pretending everything is totally fine to your friends, I need you to hear this loud and clear. That's not a you problem. Nobody taught us this.
No, they really didn't.
Think about the education system, right? We spend over a decade in classrooms. We learn that the powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria. We learn, like, how to calculate the area of a rhombus. But nobody ever sits us down, hands us a simulated paycheck, and says, hey, here is the psychological warfare you are about to face when this hits your checking account.
God, I wish someone had done that.
Right. It's like we're handed the keys to a high-speed car, shoved onto the highway, and given zero driver's ed. So, seriously, drop the shame right now. I spent half my 20s bouncing checks.
Oh, same.
Just swiping my debit card and praying. It's a societal oversight. It's not some moral failing on your part.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I think the isolation is what keeps people stuck. You just assume you are the only one secretly struggling while all your coworkers have it figured out.
Yeah.
But if you look at the data, it paints a completely different, frankly terrifying picture.
Yeah, let's talk about the data, because it shatters that whole illusion. Depending on the study you look at, a massive percentage of Americans, many reports indicate it's over half, say they are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep, over half.
And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, yeah, inflation is insane, wages are low. And that is true. But here's the curveball. Surveys suggest that this paycheck-to-paycheck reality includes a huge swath of people making really impressive salaries. We're talking about people pulling in $70, $80, even over $100,000 a year.
It's wild. It's the treadmill effect.
Exactly. The great American illusion is that once you finally get that promotion, once you hit that magical income threshold, all your financial anxiety will magically evaporate. And it just doesn't.
It really doesn't. And that raises the core dilemma, which is basically the mission of our deep dive today.
Mm-hmm.
If this cycle of running out of money before you run out of month isn't strictly about how much money you make, why does it keep happening? And more importantly, how do we actually fix it?
Yeah, and let me make a promise to you right out of the gate here. The answer today is absolutely not going to be stop buying coffee.
Oh, please, no.
I cannot stand that advice. It is the laziest narrative in the financial world. If buying a $5 iced latte is the one tiny sliver of joy getting you through a brutal commute, we are not going to strip that away from you. Blaming systemic financial anxiety on a beverage is so
It
condescending.
really is. It ignores all the actual structural traps that keep people running in place. So today, we're going to expose those invisible traps, and we're going to build a functional, bulletproof GPS to get you out of them.
Yes. But to do that, we need to move away from just the abstract theories and look at a real person. Let's introduce a persona to really anchor this. We'll call him Jake.
Okay, check.
Jake is 32 years old. He works in marketing in Austin, Texas, and he makes $62,000 a year.
Okay, so objectively, a very solid income.
Right. And let's look at his life because it's going to sound incredibly familiar. Jake is not an idiot with his money. He's not popping bottles at the club every weekend. He pays his rent on time. He has like Netflix, Spotify, a decent gym membership. He grabs takeout or gets beers with friends maybe twice a week.
This is completely normal.
Totally normal. He is not irresponsible. But just like in your story, Jake hits the 27th of the month, opens the banking app, and there's basically $0 in there. He's totally tapped out.
Yeah, Jake's reality is the perfect example of what I call the GPS analogy. Making a good salary without a financial system is literally like owning a perfectly good, very expensive car, but having zero GPS.
Oh, I like that.
Right, like you can press the gas pedal to the floor. You can be moving incredibly fast, which in this analogy means you have a high volume of cash flowing into your life.
Hmm.
But if you have no destination programmed into the dashboard, you're still going to get completely lost.
You're just driving in circles really fast.
Exactly. The speed of the car doesn't matter if you have no map. Your income is just the engine, but your system is the steering wheel.
I think, well, if Jake just gets a rate, if he gets an $85,000 engine, the sheer volume of cash will solve the problem. He won't need a map.
That is the biggest misconception, and it's totally false because of human behavioral psychology. Have you ever heard of Parkinson's law?
Is that the one about work expanding to fill the time?
Yes, exactly. The original law states that work expands to fill the time allotted for it. Well, there's a financial equivalent. Subconsciously, your lifestyle and your spending will inevitably expand to consume all the available income in your checking account.
Oh, wow.
Right. So if Jake gets that raise to 85K, he decides his apartment is cramped, so he upgrades to a place with in-unit laundry. He finances a slightly newer car. He starts upgrading from the taco truck to a sit-down restaurant. Unless you build a system to interrupt that default, earning more money just means you will be broke at a higher standard of living.
Broke at a higher standard of living. That is brutal, but so accurate. So, okay, since Jake isn't a disaster with money, he just lacks a system. What are the actual invisible traps keeping him and the listener stuck?
There are three main reasons, three real reasons you stay stuck. And the first one is a massive blind spot. Reason number one, you don't actually know where your money goes.
See, people hear that and they think, I know where my money goes. I pay rent and buy groceries. But they're relying on mental math. And mental math is a pathological liar.
Completely.
If you ask Jake, hey, how much do you spend eating out? He'll look at the ceiling and go, well, I bought a burger on Friday. Maybe $200 a month.
And it's never 200.
Never. When you actually pull the bank statements, it's actually $430 every single time.
It's fascinating from a cognitive standpoint. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you from cognitive overload. The human brain is terrible at aggregating dozens of tiny, frictionless data points over 30 days.
Yeah, frictionless is the key word. When we used cash, it literally caused a pain response to hand over a $20 bill. Now, you double tap your phone, it dings, and the money is gone. Zero pain.
Exactly. So your brain filters out those small swipes.
Yeah.
So the fix for this, the only fix, is to check the last 60 days of your transaction history. And I want to be really clear. No shame, no guilt, just raw data.
Right. You're just observing.
Neutrally. It doesn't matter if you use a budgeting app, a spreadsheet, or just scroll through the bank's website. You just have to look at reality.
Okay, so that's reason one. Reason two is a fundamental flaw in how we are taught to manage our paychecks. Reason two, saving what's left over equals saving absolutely nothing.
This is the default for almost everyone. The paycheck hits, you pay rent, your car, your subscriptions, maybe you order some DoorDash,
Right.
and you plan to save whatever's left over at the end of the month. The problem, there is never anything left over.
Never, because of Parkinson's law again.
Right.
So you have to flip the sequence. You have to automate a transfer the exact day the paycheck hits, even if it's just $50. Because if you don't see it in your checking account, you won't spend it. Honestly, you have to decide. Are you going to pay your future self first, or are you going to pay Chipotle first?
That's the real battle.
It is. And if you leave it in checking, the burrito bowl wins every time.
It absolutely does, because it relies on willpower.
Huh.
And willpower gets depleted. By Friday night, you are too tired to manually transfer money to savings. Automation removes human weakness from the equation.
Okay, so that brings us to reason number 3. And this is the one that turns an inconvenience into a total crisis. Reason 3, no emergency fund means every crisis goes on a credit card.
This is where things get really dangerous.
Yeah. Let's break down some of the jargon, specifically APR, annual percentage rate. Without cash, emergencies become high-interest debt. Right now, a lot of credit cards have an APR of around 24%.
Which is astronomical.
It's insane. And to explain that educationally, if you put $400 on a credit card and only make the minimum payments, that debt grows incredibly fast. You're basically paying interest on top of interest, making it feel completely impossible to escape.
Let's use an example. Let's meet Sophia. Sophia's 24. She works DoorDash, maybe some hospitality shifts. She's working hard.
Right.
But then her car breaks down. A $400 repair.
Ugh, the worst.
And because she doesn't have a buffer, she has to put it on the credit card. And next month, her budget is even tighter because now she has a new minimum payment plus interest. It's a spiral.
But this is where the traditional advice makes me so mad. Because some finance guru will tell Sophia she's irresponsible for not having 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up. If you are struggling to buy groceries, hearing you need 10 grand saved up is just paralyzing.
It's totally paralyzing for beginners.
So we need to completely stop stressing over the 3 to 6 month advice right now. The first goal is just $500.
Yes, just $500. For many people, even having a few $100s saved can significantly reduce reliance on credit cards during emergencies. It's a shock absorber.
Okay, so knowing the traps is only half the battle. Now, let's actually build the GPS. Let's give you this step-by-step fix that you can implement this weekend.
Yes, let's do it. We call this the 3 Sundays reset. It's a simple, non-overwhelming 3-week system.
I love this because it breaks it down into bite-sized pieces. So Sunday number 1.
Sunday 1 is, look at the reality. You just open the bank app. Look at the last 60 days. Group your spending how much on dining out, subscriptions, transit, entertainment, and I cannot stress this enough, zero judgment.
It's just a data gathering mission.
Purely data. You were not allowed to be mad at yourself for that overpriced dinner 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so you get the data. Then a week goes by. Sunday 2. This is where we give every dollar a job. We use the 4 buckets.
Right. So bucket 1, fixed costs. That's your rent, utilities, insurance.
Bucket 2, savings. And remember, we automate this first, the day the paycheck hits.
Bucket 3 is investments.
Right. And for people new to this, we usually talk about index funds. An index fund is just a fund that tracks a broad market index like the S&P 500. It's very popular for long-term investing because you buy a tiny slice of hundreds of companies. But mandatory disclaimer here, like any investment, value can go up or down, and they are not guaranteed to make money. It involves risk.
Absolutely. It's for the long term. And finally, bucket 4, guilt-free spending.
Oh, this is the one people mess up.
Constantly. People try to be ultra-frugal and cut out all fun. But the guilt-free bucket isn't a reward. It's what keeps the whole plan from collapsing.
It's like going on a crash diet and saying you'll never eat carbs again. On day 6, you eat an entire cake.
Exactly. If you don't build in fun money, you'll blow the whole budget in 2 weeks. Frugality fatigue is real.
Okay, so that's the 4 buckets. Finally, Sunday 3, open the account, move the money.
This is the physical action day. You go online, open a completely separate savings account.
Separate bank.
Yes, separate bank to create friction so you can't easily transfer it back to your checking account.
And the final action step for Sunday 3, transfer $25 into it today. Right now. I know people will say, $25 won't change my life. But the habit beats the amount every single time.
It shifts your identity from someone who is broke to someone who saves.
Exactly. Okay, we've covered so much ground today.
We really have.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, if you've made it this far into the deep dive, you are already doing something most people never do. You are showing up for your financial future.
Yes, you really are. But let's say you follow the plan. You automate. You hit that first $1,000 saved. Now what? Do you invest it? Do you pay off that credit card debt? Do you move it to a high-yield savings account?
It's a great question.
The answer isn't obvious, and it's exactly what we will be covering next week.
I can't wait. And hey, if this deep dive was actually useful today, not just nice to listen to, but a real practical tool, please subscribe and hit the bell. A new deep dive drops every single week.
We'll see you next week. And hey, go check that bank statement tonight. You already know you need to.